Ulysses Franklin Grant was born on August 1st, 1865, and he was an American baseball player in the 19th century. Early in his career, he was a star player in the International League, shortly before race-based restrictions were imposed that banned African American players from organized baseball. Mr. Grant then became a pioneer in the early Negro League, starring for several of the top African American teams of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He is widely considered to have been the greatest African American player of the 19th century. In 2006, Mr. Grant was elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame. So that's just an intro. Now we're going to get more into it. Mr. Grant was born in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. He played semi-pro baseball in Pittsfield and in Plattsburgh, New York. In 1886, Mr. Grant played for an Eastern League team based in Meriden, Connecticut. He signed with the Buffalo Bisons in the International League, one level below the major leagues. Later that season, though most sources indicate the official integration of organized baseball would not come for several more decades, Mr. Grant was one of 5 black players who played in baseball's otherwise white minor leagues at the time. When he debuted with the team, a Buffalo newspaper reporter referred to Grant as a Spaniard. His batting average was .344 with Buffalo that season. In 1887, the 22-year-old batted .353, paced the IL with 11 home runs and 49 extra base hits, and led Buffalo with 40 stolen bases. In 1887, John Chapman, the Bison's veteran manager, valued Grant's services at $5,000, a compliment when Chicago had recently sold superstar King Kelly to Boston for $10,000. During the 1887 season, Mr. Grant hit for the cycle in one game and stole home twice in another. Despite significant racial turmoil that year, Buffalo forced the IL to rescind a proposed color line to keep Grant in town. By 1888, anti-black sentiment was all around the league, and it seemed only Buffalo argued against segregation, possibly because of Grant. When blacks were banned from organized, white-controlled baseball in 1889, Mr. Grant went on to become a successful Negro leaguer for the Cuban Giants, Cuban X-Giants, Big Gore Hams, and Philadelphia Giants in the 20th century. His career ended in 1903. Author Jerry Malloy described Mr. Grant as the greatest Negro baseball player of the 19th century. In the late 19th century, few black players matched up with Grant. He had substantial power at the plate, often hitting home runs and very often getting extra base hits. Mr. Grant hit for extra base hits every 4 times he got a hit. He achieved this even though he was quite small, 5'7", 155 pounds. A middle infielder, mostly a second baseman, Mr. Grant had fielding skills widely praised as the best in the league. He was known as the Black Dunlap, a comparison drawn to the defensive skills of 19th century white second baseman Fred Dunlap. Mr. Grant is also notable for becoming the first black player to play on the same team in organized baseball for 3 consecutive seasons. After his baseball career, Mr. Grant's name rarely appeared in the press. He lived a quiet life as a waiter for a catering company, and Mr. Grant died at the age of 71 in New York City. And in 2006, Mr. Grant was elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame. So I wanted to share the story of Mr. Grant because when I started doing more research about him, I realized he could play and he could crush the ball. Being 5'7", and out of every 4 bats, he was hitting an extra base hit. That should tell you he was crushing the ball. So I was like in awe hearing this story, and I was like, man, I gotta share this story. So he was the best player, at least regarded, the best player in the 19th century, and for him to play on an all-white team for 3 years during that time, that should tell you how valuable he was as a player. So I enjoyed this episode. If you guys enjoyed this, definitely hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm former Major League Baseball player Jermaine Curtis, and for the month of February, I am showcasing players that haven't been getting too much press or have been forgotten. So today we did Ulysses Franklin Grant, and it was amazing. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next video, and I want to thank you again for watching all the way into the end.